Hello and welcome to another Huns History Nest podcast, where history is enjoyed and salvaged forever. On colonial development, and to effectively show you the colonial development of the United States of America, it's good to start with the English monarchs. Now, the first English monarch that we're going to talk about is this gentleman right here, and this is King Henry, and he's of the House of Tudors, so Henry Tudor. And we were going to begin with looking at him because much of the United States' titles of our states today come from his family. Now, as we can see here, King Henry VIII went through quite a few wives. His first wife here, Catherine of Aragon, she was his first wife, actually the wife of his brother who died, and he married her, and she gave birth to a young lady by the name of Mary. This is her daughter. King Henry VIII never had any sons with Catherine of Aragon, and thus wanted a divorce. And this divorce will lead to what we call the English Reformation. And he does this, he changes the entire scope of England, changes it from being a Catholic nation to that of a Protestant one. And the English Reformation will give rise to what will become known as the Anglican Church, as seen up here. Now, he does this to get a divorce from Mary. And he does this because he has fallen in love with another woman who is one of the maidens of Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn, she will give birth to a girl, and her name will be Elizabeth. King Henry VIII ultimately will find out that she has some indiscretions, perhaps with another man, and he will actually behead her, and will then marry another woman by the name of Jane Seymour, who becomes his third wife. And Jane Seymour, she will give birth to Edward, a little boy, but she will die giving birth. And these become thus the three mothers of King Henry VIII's siblings. All the rest will be beheaded. Actually, she is not beheaded. She is actually gets a divorce. She gets beheaded, and Catherine Parr outlives King Henry VIII. But we will see here how this will play out and affect the United States colonial development era. After King Henry VIII's gone and so forth, King Edward will die in the throne. Mary will also, and Elizabeth will outlive and never get married. So then it goes to the next family, and these are the cousins, James and his sons, Charles. So this is sort of a little bit of background on his family. As seen here, after the death of King Henry VIII, Edward, because he is a boy, he will take over as King of England. He will die, it's believed, due to tuberculosis, in his time in and on the throne is very limited to just a 6-year period. After that, it then goes to Queen Mary. Now, Queen Mary, her mother a Catholic, she remained a Catholic, and when she became Queen of England, she converts England back to being a Catholic nation from that of the Church of England. And she rounds up all the ministers of the Church of England and begins to put them to death. And we see this here. Thus she inherits the nickname Bloody Mary. Mary dies in and on the throne, and as a result probably of ovarian cancer, her reign as queen is very limited. She never has any children. And thus the reign of King Henry VIII's family falls upon Queen Elizabeth, who is perhaps one of the most beloved of all kings and queens in England. She will have a long reign there. We believe she may have died of blood poisoning. At the time, very much wear heavy amounts of makeup. Bottom line, though, is she never gets married because, as you can see, the family history here, she is nicknamed the Virgin Queen because she never gives birth to any children, and thus we will see how this implicates the founding of some of our colonies. But that's sort of a history there of the family members of King Henry VIII that take over the throne. A bit of history in terms of religion, and this stems from the breaking away of the Catholic Church. The first ever breaking away from the Catholic Church will come about as what we call the Protestant Reformation. And in an effort to understand these terms, I want us to look at the word Protestant. The root word here is protest, which means to go against. And in this case, it would be the Catholic Church. Now, the second portion of this Reformation, the root word is reform. And when one reforms something, it's an effort to try and change it for the better. Now, the individual that led this was a person by the name of Martin Luther, seen over here. And Martin Luther was a German Catholic priest or monk, and he had some serious issues with the Catholic Church. And he wrote these issues in what we call here the 95 Theses. And he put these at the door of the church that he was a priest at, Wittenberg, Germany, in 1517. Some of the things that he was upset with the most were, he was very upset with the Bible and the interpretation of the Bible falling only upon those that were priests. He thought that people should read the Bible for themselves and be an interpreter of religious thought on their own. The other thing was that he was upset with how the sacraments of the Catholic Church were being provided, like individuals that go to confession or reconciliation. He was upset with this due to the fact that a lot of priests were trying to raise money for the Catholic Church and thus were actually taking money for individuals to receive the service or sacrament of reconciliation or confession, and he thought this went against all thought of religion. So he broke away from the Catholic Church, and this started the Protestant Reformation, and thus some of the faiths like what we call today like Lutheranism and so forth are all Protestant faiths. These are all Christian faiths with subtle differences of the Catholic Church. This leads us to the next thing, which is the English Reformation. As already briefly mentioned, the English Reformation is done by King Henry VIII leads the English Reformation, and this was to obtain a divorce from his wife, as we already discussed. Now, once the English Reformation occurs, obviously this is a religious faith that is being done perhaps for the wrong reasons, and thus a movement in England occurs which is called the Puritan movement. And this actually has some of its ancestry or beginnings that stem back to mainland Europe with John Calvin. And these were individuals who wanted to make the Catholic faith pure, and that's where we get Puritan from. The root word is pure. They want to make it better. They like being separated from the Catholic Church, but they want the English Church to be better, more purified. And thus we have this Puritan movement. And we're going to begin to see that these Puritans are going to gain a massive following, and ultimately they are going to want a better faith, and many will travel to the New World, that being today's United States and the East Coast, to find this religious lifestyle that they want. Like much of Europe, England is in a time of social change. We have tremendous poverty, overpopulation, etc. And for this reason, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth, she is going to make an attempt to colonize the New World. And this first attempt is going to be done in North America, and it's going to be run by and or supervised by a very close friend of hers, Sir Walter Raleigh. Sir Walter Raleigh will take a group of colonists and they will land in an area that is just off of today's coast of North Carolina. And as seen here, it's this island here. This would be North Carolina, and up here this is today's state of Virginia. And he will lead these colonists and will come back and forth with supplies and so forth. But when individuals come back the third time, all of these colonists are gone. The only remnants of their existence was a tree that had the word Croatoan on there. Many people believe perhaps they were starving or had some trouble and sought refuge with the Croatoan Indians. Bottom line is, it remains a mystery as to what happened to the first attempt at colonization. So it was basically unsuccessful. After Queen Elizabeth, King James, her cousin, takes over, as we discussed, and King James will sponsor another trip to the New World, and this charter or permission slip is given to a group of individuals in England, and this group of individuals were what we call a joint stock company, and this joint stock company was actually titled the London Company. This was a profit. This was a for-profit venture. The goal here is to make money. Things do not go well for these individuals that land here for the London Company, and the London Company will be here in Virginia, and they will name this area after the king that gave them the permission slip. They'll name it Jamestown after King James. The colonists are saved from their hard times basically due to the events surrounding Captain John Smith, who himself wasn't a leader at first. As the story goes, John Smith will become friends with a Native American princess who was in her teenage years, and she will befriend him. She will, in this picture as you see, save John Smith from her father, and will actually join and live with the Native Americans for a short period of time. It is during this time that he, of course, is provided from Pocahontas the thing that ultimately saves Jamestown financially, and that's tobacco. And this is exactly what this profit-making venture needed. And here's statistically kind of what transpires. From 1620, they're exporting 40,000 pounds of tobacco a year. So this becomes the profit-making product that they needed. The other thing that's going to happen here, which is also going to be interesting, is that the House of Burgesses will be established here due to the distance between England and the New World. And this is basically the first lawmaking group in the United States of America. So Jamestown will become kind of like a self-sufficient area in terms of law, and they'll be shipping back profit in the form of tobacco to the mother country. Over the course of time, the Jamestown colonists will have to begin experimenting with slavery to grow tobacco, a very labor-intensive type of farming. And there'll be several different things that will start here. The first thing that will occur is there will be the use of slavery by natives. And this will basically not work out very well, as seen here, because Native Americans can run away, escape. It becomes very difficult. They're also going to use indentured servitude, bringing people from England, and they will sign up for a limited amount of time and then earn their freedom. But ultimately, the form of slavery that is used and will expand is going to be the enslavement of individuals from the continent of Africa. And there's several reasons for this. Skin color is going to help to identify slaves from other groups, and ultimately the Portuguese and Spanish have been enslaving these Africans for quite some time, and as a result they are able to be purchased. So this is going to be the beginning of American slavery. The second colony, which will come about, is going to be at Plymouth. And this is going to be north of the Jamestown settlement. Ironically, it is actually part of Virginia. Virginia named after the Virgin Queen, Queen Elizabeth. And Plymouth is going to be the name chosen because this is the actual place that they depart. They depart from Plymouth, England, but it is spelled with an I, and thus they use it to name their new settlement. These are what we call Puritan separatists. These are individuals who have basically deemed the Church of England so bad that they want to separate from it completely, not fix it, but get away from it. And they arrive here, and when they do so, they will write the first ever government known as the Mayflower Compact. And this is an agreement amongst all the individuals on the Mayflower ship, and this is going to become their first contractual form of government to one another. Several individuals will die within the first few months, one of them being John Carver, the first elected governor, and William Bradford will succeed him, and he will be the one that will institute this first Thanksgiving. And this is really a thanks to their survival. And much of their survival was provided because of the help of a Native American by the name of Squanto, otherwise known as Tisquantum. And he will provide them techniques and ways in which they can grow food and survive here. And the relationship between the Native Americans and the Pilgrims and or Puritan separatists will exist because of this relationship.